Right there in each of your eyes is a hole. Not metaphorical, literal. A patch on your retina with 0 light-sensing cells. It's roughly 12 to 15 degrees off-center, about the size of a fist held at arm's length, blotting out a real chunk of sky. You've never seen it. Not once. Not today. Not ever. By the end of this video, you'll know why your brain would rather invent an entire scene than show you a gap. In your vision and in your memory. Here's the mechanic. Where your optic nerve exits the eye, there's no room for photoreceptors. That spot is blind. Completely. But you don't experience a black hole in your vision. You experience nothing missing at all. Your brain looks at what's around the gap, the wall, the sky, the pattern on the carpet, and paints the same thing over it. Try it. Close one eye, stare at a fixed point, and slowly move a small object through your peripheral vision. At one spot, it vanishes. Not fades, vanishes. This was first documented over 350 years ago by a French physicist, Edmé Mariotte, using nothing but 2 marks on a wall. And this isn't a rare glitch. There's a second related effect happening in your eyes right now, called Troxler fading. Stare at one point for a few seconds, and anything not moving in the corners of your vision starts to physically dissolve, dimming, disappearing, replaced by whatever surrounds it. It happens because neurons get bored. Unchanging input makes them stop firing. No new signal, no perceived object.
Illusion designers exploit exactly this. Soft-edged, low-contrast shapes fade fastest, because there's less signal left to argue against your brain's guess. The only reason your whole visual field doesn't dissolve into patches is that your eyes never actually sit still. Tiny, involuntary movements, called microsaccades, keep refreshing the image, dozens of times a second. Stop those movements, hold your gaze rigid enough, and the world genuinely starts vanishing around the edges. Why build a system this glitchy? Because the alternative is worse. A visual field full of visible gaps would be a constant flickering distraction, exactly the kind of thing that gets an animal eaten while it's busy figuring out what a hole in its vision means. A seamless, complete-looking world frees up processing power for the stuff that actually matters. Movement, threats, faces. This isn't just a vision thing. The same predictive, fill-in-the-blank machinery runs your hearing, your sense of touch, even how you parse half-heard sentences. Your brain isn't built to record reality. It's built to guess it, fast, and mostly get away with it. An organism that defaults to probably fine survives more often than one that freezes every time the input goes quiet.
Here's where the filling in stops being subtle. In people with significant vision loss, that same machinery goes into overdrive because there's genuinely less real information coming in, and it still isn't allowed to leave a gap. It's called Charles Bonnet syndrome, and depending on the study, somewhere between 1 in 10 and nearly 4 in 10 people with major vision impairment experience it. Not vague static, full detailed hallucinations, patterned wallpaper that isn't there, strangers sitting quietly on the couch, animals walking across the room. And almost everyone who experiences it knows immediately that it isn't real. This isn't psychosis. It's a starved visual cortex doing exactly what it always does, filling a gap, just with nothing real left to draw from. It mostly shows up in people over 70, and it's so often mistaken for dementia or a psychiatric break that many patients never mention it to a doctor at all. Sit in a dark room or go a long stretch without much visual input, and the hallucinations get more frequent. Less real data in, more invention out. Same rule as the blind spot, just louder.
Now here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. Your brain runs this exact same trick on memory. In 1984, a 22-year-old named Jennifer Thompson was raped at knife point in her apartment. During the attack, she deliberately studied her attacker's face, his eyes, his eyebrows, his hairline, telling herself she'd need to identify him later. Police showed her photos. She picked a man named Ronald Cotton. Days later, in a live lineup, she picked him again. In court, she testified with total certainty. Cotton was convicted, sentenced to life plus 54 years. He served over 10 years in prison for a rape he did not commit. In 1995, DNA evidence proved the actual attacker was a different man entirely, one who had been in prison with Cotton the whole time, a man named Bobby Poole. Cotton was exonerated. Here's the unsettling part. Thompson's certainty didn't come from a sharper memory. It grew over months, fed by police feedback and repeated exposure to Cotton's face, the same way your brain paints new pixels over a blind spot, not with truth, with whatever feels most coherent.
Eyewitness misidentification is a factor in a large majority of DNA-proven wrongful convictions in the US, commonly cited at around 70%. Cases like this pushed more than a dozen US states to require double-blind lineups, where the officer running the lineup doesn't even know who the suspect is. The Innocence Project alone has used DNA testing to overturn more than 300 wrongful convictions in the US. Your brain cannot reliably tell the difference between "I clearly remember this" and "I've successfully patched this gap." Confidence and accuracy are not the same signal, they just feel identical from the inside. So the same wiring that hides a hole in your eye, the one you've never seen, not once, is the wiring that can hand a courtroom a completely false, completely confident identification. Your eyes, your memory, your entire sense of an unbroken, complete reality, patched together by a brain that hates admitting it doesn't know. So, think of one memory you'd swear is 100% accurate. What if it's not a memory at all? What if it's just a really, really good guess?